It's a real pleasure to have this opportunity to talk to you about some of the work that we had been doing on active aging. And sometimes we use the term active and healthy aging to describe the same phenomenon. Okay. What I would do is I would take just a little short time to introduce what do we mean by active and healthy aging, and especially active and healthy aging as a policy approach, but also active and healthy aging as an umbrella concept which includes many different dimensions of basic human rights of older persons. So I want to argue that active aging is a basic human right of older person. I want to then go on to introduce a statistical quantitative instrument called Active Aging Index, which we developed with the help of funding from European Commission and from UN Economic Commission for Europe, for European countries. As yet, we are not able to include Turkey in it, but I want to still present this index because Turkey is currently busy constructing this index. And also, I want to argue that using such indices help us identify policy priorities for individual countries. So I want to present a case that many countries in Asia Pacific, also in Europe, embarking on constructing this kind of indices because these indices are particularly useful to help policymakers identify what are the policy priorities in their own country. At the end, I would give some conclusions. So, introducing active and healthy aging as a policy approach and as a human right. The broad idea underlying active and healthy aging is that active and engaged people contribute to their own health. When people, especially in their old age, are active and socially engaged, is good for their health. So they have a healthy form of aging. But also, active and engaged and healthy people are good for the society as a whole because we end up having more older people, self-reliant and autonomous. Sorry about that. But the main point that we need to emphasize over and over again is that active and healthy aging rejects the deficit model. Deficit model in which for much too long we have been projecting older people as passive, dependent on welfare benefits. We need to come out of that outdated way of thinking about older persons. Instead, what we want to promote is positive, optimistic perspectives of aging in which we view older people as agents of development, agents of change. So active and healthy aging is actually favoring a rights-based approach in which we are recognizing equality of opportunity for people of all ages. So in its various forms, as I've already mentioned, active and healthy aging is a basic human right for people of all ages, in particular, people in their later life. An example here is that employment, which is a popular form of active aging, is a basic human right, irrespective of what age group we belong to. Similarly, opportunities for social engagement, opportunities for healthy living with the help of public social services, and availability of age-friendly enabling environments. All of these are part of the active and healthy aging approach, and they form basic human rights for older persons. What are the different strategies? Active and healthy aging strategies operate at different levels, sometimes simultaneously. At the individual level, for example, we all need to bring about lifestyle changes to enjoy and experience active and healthy aging. Also, the employers who employ us at the meso level, at the organizational level, they need to provide more age-friendly environment, and that would be another form of active and healthy aging strategy. But also at the societal level, for the society as a whole, public policies to promote health and social care services that are another form of active and healthy aging strategy. Also, active and healthy aging strategies operates at all stages of life course. So it's not just about thinking about old age persons. In fact, active and healthy aging strategy include better education, health and nutrition during early childhood. It includes opportunities for employment, for savings throughout working life. And it includes adequate pensions and lifelong learning opportunities in later life. So you could see already that this is a very diverse form. When we talk about the term active and healthy aging, it's a very diverse form of strategies which operates at different levels, individual level, organizational level, at the state societal level. It is not just meant to cover policies to promote health and active engagement of older persons. In fact, it starts much earlier in the life course, so it operates at different levels. Having now understood what we mean by active and healthy aging, I present an instrument which is called Active Aging Index, which is a numerical measure which was developed during European Year 2012, which was the European Year for Active Aging and Solidarity Between Generations. The broad philosophy behind the work of Active Aging Index, and I've been doing this work for the last 5 years, and I could not find any better quote than from Lord Kelvin in 1883, when he said, "When you cannot express it in numbers, your knowledge is of a meager and unsatisfactory kind." So we can go on banging on about the goodness or the good things that we have in active and healthy aging, but till we start converting these ideas into numbers and seeing which country does better, which group does better, what can we learn from those experiences, our knowledge is not a satisfactory kind. And one could also very quickly, I could go through 3 different stages of building such a quantitative evidence. So we need quantitative numbers, quantitative evidence to make policies. And there are 3 different stages. The first stage is, of course, production of good surveys, censuses, and administrative registers to provide timely and representative data. So the focus is on data production through surveys, censuses, and administrative registers. And here there is a good example. Last year we started with the Titchville City Group on Aging, which is now working with national statistical offices, including the Turkish Statistical Office, to identify what are the gaps in aging-related data and how we can help each other learn from best practices and bring about improvements. The second stage of evidence building is using that survey data or administrative data or census data to develop indicators. And many of you, as I understand, you are many academics in the audience, they use indicators all the time. And here we have a good example of UN Population Division providing key indicators on demographic change, Also, country-specific official statistics often provide very detailed statistical indicators on lives of older persons. But the main point that I'm making, and that's where my work comes in, is that the third stage, in which you bring all these indicators which are unidimensional, which is covering one specific aspect, into a single framework so that you could help policymakers where their country is lagging behind and what can they learn from better performing countries to bring about policy reforms. So I will be presenting today Active Aging Index just to make that point, and that Active Aging Index is for EU countries, but there are two other indices that falls in the same category: Global Age Watch Index, which we did with HelpAge International, and Wellbeing in Later Life Index, which we did with Age UK. So what is Active Aging Index? It was launched in the year 2012, which was the European Year for Active Aging and Solidarity Between Generations. And at the time, we realized that there's a lot of talk and even belief that active and healthy aging is a solid approach, and this is the approach to be adopted by member states. But we didn't have any quantitative instrument to show which countries are doing better and why they might be doing better. So we decided to produce a high-quality, independent, multi-perspective quantitative evidence on active aging in Europe. And this picture can tell you everything that you need to know about Active Aging Index. You could see this as some sort of pyramid. 22 different indicators form the base of the pyramid. And then what we do is we adopt a statistical method to summarize all the information in those 22 different indicators to come to the top of the pyramid number, which we call Active Aging Index. So we have multidimensional indicators of employment, of social participation, of independent living, and of enabling environment. And so you could, through this kind of framework, you could analyze the individual indicators if that's what you are interested in. You could also analyze the mid-level aggregation of domains: employment, participation in society, independent, healthy, and secure living, and capacity and enabling environment. Or if you're interested in just one single number, you could go further up and just look at one Active Aging Index. And we did that separately for men and women, so you could compare how active aging is different between men and women. And we did this work now for 3 different years, and we found that in almost all 3 years, 2008, 2010, and 2012, Nordic countries do very well. They are right at the top of the ranking, which is not surprising. Many of the Nordic countries, like Denmark, Sweden, they're celebrating already 100 years of pensions, 100 years of provision of social services to older people. So they were the first ones to identify the priority. At the time, they were nothing more than, they were not as rich as they are now, but they are not more than middle-income countries. And we found that the Central and Eastern European countries are at the bottom, and many of the large countries like Germany, France, Italy, they are in the middle. And I'm hoping that soon we will have Turkey included in this picture. But the main point, and very quickly I want to make this point, is that if we look at Denmark, Denmark is one of the top performing countries. It's ranked second across 28 EU countries. And that's the overall top of the pyramid number. But when we look at Denmark in employment, it is also performing very well in employment. moving to the second domain of the index, we see Denmark is not performing very well in this domain, despite the fact that Denmark overall is one of the best performing countries. And similarly, Denmark being top performing country in the third domain and top performing country in the fourth domain. So through this kind of index, we can show how a top performing country is still falling short by 30% of the goalpost value, but above all, we can show that if Danish, which is one of the most advanced welfare state of European Union countries, if Danish wants to do policies to improve active and healthy aging, it is this domain that need to focus on. So basically using the same information that was available through individual indicators, we put them in a framework, and with the help of this framework, we can point to policymakers which areas they need to focus on if they want to improve active and healthy aging. Now some conclusions very quickly. Active and healthy aging strategies empower older people. It helps them fulfill their fullest potential and improve their quality of life. And active and healthy aging becomes an umbrella strategy in improving the rights of older persons in different dimensions. The Active Aging Index framework that I presented, it helps identify specific priorities for each country to identify where the potential of older people may not be realized, and by how much, and how they can learn from the best performing countries. So Active Aging Index framework can actually be used to highlight where a legislation or its enforcement for the rights of older people remain unfulfilled. The same way as we are identifying policy priorities, we can identify which different dimensions are where rights of older people are unfulfilled. Thank you so much.